We started with the famous Bantam book. This is how I recreated it, and we'll start with the drawings that I took at the Smithsonian with measurements of number 7. These were done over an 8-hour period with a soft tape with permission from the Smithsonian, so as I could recreate the pilot. Without these measurements and photographs, I don't think you could really do an accurate job of it. So as you can see, these are pretty hastily drawn, but they're accurate with the measurements, and that's all that matters. Is the measurements is what you need. Okay, now these pictures here, first pictures I got were from Bob Brandon, and then most of the other pictures came from Bruce Lynch. So these pictures really do help. BRC 60s online there, ready to go. The only underhood photo of the inner fender area here, which told me they had no louvers on the inside, hence the hastily punched louvers later on the Army put in to cool the engine. Plus it gives you a good idea of shape of the fender panel from the side panel that meets the fender there. Good close look at blackout light, blue louver, which I'll show later. I do have, and of course about the only picture of the fuel tank. There is one other from a different angle. The start of the chassis, all pretty crude. Body finish there with a diamond plate floor, which I didn't think was correct until I saw it on number 7 in the Smithsonian. Here is a very rare picture of the exhaust manifold, of which I have a new old stock, which we'll show later. Some more pictures with dates. Shows you how the grille was attached to the chassis. Still not quite attached there, as it's not touching. Of course, without these photographs and the 200 photographs that I took, there's the other picture of the fuel tank, so that gives you the other shape. Some front end pictures. Great picture of the tire. Wish I could get some of those, but they don't make them. Another picture showing how wide the drive shaft is, which I'll show later. Only on the Pilot was the drive shaft that big. And the only other underhood shot showing the battery location, the coil, and the air cleaner, radiator. Good shot of the horn, which I managed to acquire. And then of course Captain Mosley beating the crap out of it. A couple of soldiers here hanging on. These guys are obviously laughing, so first time they've been in a 4-wheel drive, must be fun. Another great photo that Bruce Lynch sent me that's really helped me was this photograph here of the glove box and the glove box catch, which I couldn't figure out, as the one at the Smithsonian was locked, and shows how the glove box lock works with this piece inside. Bill Spear sent me these photos that he took of the 60 a while ago. They were in better shape than the ones that I took, so they were very helpful as well in comparing the two. So as you can see, a lot of ABS members helping out here. The next project right there is the Canadian BRC 60 with the double cutout, and here we have it over here hanging on the wall. That is the beginning of a BRC 60, a 1939 Roadster cow. And then just a couple more shots now of 60s. So that is what I used for my reference, followed by these photographs. Each one of these 5 here are all put into some kind of order, like under the dash shots, underneath the chassis shots, mainly outside shots of the body, all the under hood shots, and all the interior shots. So these are all taken at the Smithsonian and taken from different rolls of film, put into packages so as I could work it out. Here we have a recreation of the Bantam flywheel, which is a unique piece. This piece here was done by Terry Williams. He had this CNC machined off an original, which is this one here. They're identical except for the timing marks on the back, but absolutely invaluable. Here we have a wonderful specimen of a front brake line for a BRC. followed by a custom new one, as I can't seem to find those ones at all. Here is the before mentioned wider drive shaft, which I scaled down from that photograph as compared to the original, which is smaller. Here we have a set of axles, early scalloped Bantam BRC 40 with the scallops, and the Pilot and the 60s had these complete hubs like this, and of course none of them exist. So what I did was take a Willys axle that wasn't scalloped, had it cut down, drilled out, had the axle put through, welded this side and that side, and then I machined this down to replicate the picture. So that is 1 inch shorter than a Willys. Here we have an original blue louver blackout light, and this is a very early one on the side, which is correct for the headlights, and of course it's in brown at the moment, which shows early war 1939-40. This is a recreation of a Bantam rear reflector. Here's a standard World War II. As you can see, quite a fair bit of difference. Of course all this stuff has to be machined from an original. Come around here. We did forget one other item, which is very important, my wife's magnifying glass, because my eyesight is going and I need to look at some of those pictures in detail. A few more reproduction pieces coming up here. This is a reject timing cover. These don't exist. I have 9 of them being machined at the moment. They're only suitable for the Bantam motor for the Jeeps. These are a pair of original Bantam clutch and brake pedals. Here is the machined article after having them copied, cast and machined at 1050. That's an expensive pair of pedals. Here we have that exhaust manifold that I managed to acquire from Tom Walbolt, and that is an original Bantam piece, and it was in cosmoline, so it's never been used. Along with this original, only 2 of these known to exist. Bruce Lynch has the other one, and this is a pintle hook, and look how difficult this is to open, so we can see why they went to the standard World War II one. Here we have a starter motor and a generator. Now this generator I didn't have. This is from pictures with the correct cast iron pulley by an old gentleman that rebuilt them for me. It took him quite a while. He even put these posts in the position for the picture that I took, and this is a rebuilt Bantam. These parts are probably the hardest parts to find, and at the moment Terry Williams is having these made, as there is none available. These are the shock absorber mounts that have been machined to the Bantam size. There's a stock shock mount, but they've been turned down, shortened and made to be exact as a Bantam. These are the Bantam spring bolts. Again, a stock bolt turned down with a different thread, the correct nut and a spacer washer. These I've had recreated the actual Bantam spring hangers, and on the 60 and on the 80, which is the Pilot, they didn't have a little swage mark here, but on the 40s they do. Of course I thought that the springs would be the same as a Willys. The U-bolt hangers, no, they're not. So the U-bolts are a different size, different thickness and a different length. These are a recreation that I made myself, like every piece on that vehicle. These are the spring mounts. These take the U-bolts through the top here, and then this piece fits in there to take the shock absorber mount. Of course I made these more than once because I put them back to front when I did them. These I've copied off a set that I borrowed off Terry Williams, and aren't they a cute little clutch and brake pedal? All I have to do is machine the thread and they screw into those little things over here, and here you have your pedals. Okay, the first piece that I acquired obviously was a Bantam cowl. This is a 39 Bantam Roadster cowl, and I think the one that I used was a 38 Bantam Roadster cowl. It was a little roadster that was up on a pole for 30 years at a putt-putt green for mini golf, so it had been welded to and was pretty rusty. This is the cowl, and then we split it through the center here which is where the original factory joined it anyway, and then we add 6 inches. So if you look at those two instruments, how close they are together, once you come over to this one, you see that they are now 6 inches wider apart. So this is what I started with. I built the cowl first, and then from the cowl I built the radiator grill, or the grill shell, and we took the original Bantam radiator and we built it around the radiator as I knew where the radiator fits and how much distance and the height of the grill and where the grill fitted onto the chassis. So we built that first, then we made the side panels to give me the length for the hood. Once the side panels were done and I had the firewall in to give it some strength, we dummied it up on the chassis. Well, I dummied it up, and then we made these pieces here. These are a 2-piece, as a complicated swage mark in here cannot be done with all the radius. Then we fit the fenders to those pieces. So they're mirror image. You make a left one and then you turn it around and make a right one. And then of course the hood with the hinges, which is the same as the photograph with the hood up, and this is the only brace they had in it, was this back brace, and that was pretty difficult because it gets smaller and the radius is different on the back, so I had to make that one a few times to get that correct. Actually I used the back of an old hood that I'd made to do that one first. The headlights, I found out the manufacturer of the headlights, and I acquired these ones off eBay after working them out. The next thing to make was the front floor section. Made the front floor section with the gearbox and transfer case cover there, which I still haven't cut out the hole yet because I want to make sure where my gearbox is. Then we make the rear floor section, which is this short section here, and the support for the rear seat, which covers the fuel tank. I think it's about a 10-gallon tank from what I understand. Then the next piece was the side panels, the 2 side panels for the wheel tub, followed by the top piece for the wheel tub on each side, which is a 1-piece from the floor to here with 1 bend in it. And then of course some toolboxes. We take the toolbox lids out. There's little toolboxes in there. And then the back seat slides up and down. There's a wing nut in this side here that hasn't been fitted yet from the Smithsonian photographs, and that's how they lock the seat. That's probably why some people confuse these Jeep, because the seat is down in some photographs and it's up in others. This is the cover for the fuel tank. This is where the fuel tank neck comes in. After I built those panels, then we did make the side panels, and to make the side panels from the front to the rear there was about 9 feet. It's too big a piece of panel to try and do all these complicated curves, so I made it in 2 sections right in the center of the wheel arch. And if we look at a photograph of the original, we could see a little kink right here, and that's where I sort of figured that they would join it. So then we made this section. I mirror imaged it for the other side. Then I made one of these sections and then mirror imaged for the other side and joined it in the middle as the Bantam factory did with a strap on the back there. And after that was done, put all the hat channels in around to put the strength back in it, and then I made the top bows and the brackets here. The next thing to make was the steering column drop brace, which is a cast piece on number 7, and so that's made out of about 6 pieces of metal and beat up a little bit to look like it was cast. These pieces are original Bantam Roadster, including this piece that bolts onto the windshield frame and this wing nut for adjusting it so the windshield can fold forward. The windshield frame I've made by copying an original Bantam Roadster piece. Okay, so starting with this pristine 1939 Roadster windshield piece, this gives me the size of the channel and the depth, and I think I made mine about a 1/16 bigger because that is a much bigger windshield. It's first of all a 6 inches wider and about 9 inches taller, and then I managed to get the correct pins through Beechwood canvas for early Bantam and early Chevrolet, and that is 1/4 inch safety glass in there. The new old stock hand wiper, I managed to find the biggest one that I could find, because obviously it doesn't cover much of the windshield, it's just there for looks. This vehicle is probably about 65% original Bantam, including the front differential, the rear differential, the gearbox transfer case, the cowl of course is original Bantam, and these fenders are vintage fenders too, but I can't tell you what they are or everybody will know, and then I won't have a secret. I have new old stock tail lights, new old stock headlight switch, new old stock instruments, genuine Bantam speedometer and 4-gauge cluster, push button starter, everything that I could find that was new old stock I purchased to build this vehicle. The other little piece here on the windshield is copied from the picture of number 7 with a reproduction mirror head. I'm still chasing one more wing nut on this side, but I should find that hopefully before. If not, I'll have to make one copy on the other side. The wheels are the original on the front here at the moment. These original 4-inch solid rims, getting very hard to find now because they only came out on the prototypes, GP, MA Willys, some early MB Willys, and of course the Bantam. So they're getting very scarce. Done from the pictures, they had a plywood base with a metal back, a very thin metal back, and the front seat on the 60 tips forward. So I also made this one tip forward, which seems to have been a Jeep thing for every Jeep made. They all had a folding front seat. There's the fuel tank, made out of stainless steel. So if it ever has to sit in a museum a long time, it's not going to rust out and give me bad gasoline, because this vehicle is built to be driven. I want to portray this vehicle as delivered to the Army before they removed the Bantam badges, which was on the side of the hood, and put some louvers in this section here. I do have the correct Bantam badges, but they aren't fitted yet. When we look at this body, I've always thought that the Bantam Pilot body was rather porky in the back, or fat, and then when I got to the Smithsonian and measured this distance here, on a 60 there is a significant difference, but I won't say what it is. But you could see that the wheel house, the top of the wheel housings to this top of this body is quite a distance on this Pilot model. Just like the Willys Pilot models and the Ford were quite a bit different. If we come over here to a BRC 40, we can see that it is way, way shallower. It's like 2 or 3 inches difference in there. Of course, I'm only giving you approximate, and you can easily see that it's very small in here. And that's why the BRC 60 was easier to get into, because they had this scalloped section as well on the 40, which I think is the nicest looking of all the Jeeps ever made, is that scalloped entryway. And this one here, the Army obviously didn't like, because I can see that this is a real hip grabber right here. Of course, I had to build the glove box, and after showing you those earlier pictures, I now know how to lock this glove box. But until I found out what it was, I just left it like this.